The most valuable thing that you have is an increment of your time. If you think about it, you're going to end up having to spend 10,000 hours just to try to get this right. Do not waste a minute of it. Once you've validated what's in your bag, the only thing left is that last 10%. That last 10% is essentially sales. Sales is nothing but storytelling. And if you do your work, if you do that first 90% right, if you know your project better than anybody and you can answer any question intelligently with the words people want to hear, not the ones they don't, if you've asked enough questions of potential distributors or financiers, it's going to give you all the information that you need to tell a story about your project that inspires others to feel about it the way you do. When you've put in your hours and done it well, you'll have the most rewarding experiences of your life. I want to wrap up with one last story that highlights one of these great experiences for me. I hope what it does is give you a real-life example of how this stuff actually works. In 2004, I was working with a group of people, and one of them, and we were making our 10 calls a day. The truth is we were making our 20 calls a day, and we were reading everything that existed in the marketplace. And one of the guys found a project called The Disassociate. And based on all the things we were reading, because we now had a contextual view of what was going on in the marketplace, this project stood out. It had an extraordinary voice. It was extraordinary storytelling. It's a project called The Disassociate that Zach Helm had written. And so we took The Disassociate and we kind of put it through our filter. We did our creative evaluation. We did our financial evaluation. And what we found out was we didn't think we could actually finance the movie. What we thought the movie was going to cost was far in excess of what we thought the market for the movie was. So we passed on it. But what we did was we noticed, or we made notice of the fact that Zach was an extraordinary voice. And so the team went about looking for every project that Zach had written, trying to find something else. And what they found was Stranger Than Fiction. And when you put Stranger Than Fiction through that filter, here's what you get. First of all, it stands out. Within the context of the marketplace, the voice, the storytelling was incredible. But Stranger Than Fiction is also a high concept idea. You probably don't think of it that way. Here's the concept. It's a movie about an IRS agent who begins to hear his life actually being narrated by an author. And then he hears the narrator say, I love these words, little did he know that events had been set in motion that would lead to his imminent death. And this movie is about Harold Crick trying to find that author and get her to change the story. Very simple, high concept. When people read this, they would say things like, it was hysterical, it was heartbreaking, they couldn't stop talking about it. Exactly what you want people to say when they're looking at your projects. It had the potential to attract a meaningful director. Even before we had Mark, we knew we had that kind of material. It had the potential to attract actors. So it was reasonable for us to assume that it was going to be one of those projects that was going to get its 4-page, 4-color ad in the LA Times, and it was going to be in Walmart, and it was going to be on those major broadcasters. We thought that if we could handle it properly, we could create something of extraordinary demand in the marketplace, and that's exactly what happened. And for all of you who love those character-driven movies, I defy you to tell me that movie didn't have some of the best characters you've ever seen on screen. What I've tried to lay out for you today are the broad strokes of how I believe you need to sharpen your thinking to win in this business and get your movies financed. I hope I haven't disappointed you that there isn't any secret password, but guys, there's no secret password here. There's just the work that you put into deciding what you put in your bag. I know many of you are here because you think you depend on me to actually get your movies financed. In actual fact, I'm here because our industry depends on you. This organization is called Film Independent, but it should actually be called Film Interdependent because the truth is we depend on each other to make this thing work. What you should realize is that we are organized as a business. Studios, managers, agents, lawyers, everybody in this business is organized around the sole purpose of discovering what you actually have in your bag. If that wasn't true, we never would have found Juno and there would be no Precious. My goal was to share my perspective on some of the things you can do, starting today, to help the industry actually find you. If you're in this business because you have an insatiable curiosity about making movies, if you're willing to do the work to methodically organize yourself around that task, then the only thing between you in getting your movies financed is the time it takes to gain the experience, knowledge, and relationships to make it happen. I wish you all great luck.